Welcome to another episode of Charros Y Clasicos, a Bosky Strings Podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez, and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Joel Ozuna.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Our next guest comes from La Jolla, Texas. She has both a bachelor's and master's in music education from UTRGV, formerly known as the University of Texas Pan American. She's also the owner and musical director of Mariachi Mariposa. Please welcome Mayra Garcia-Adame.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for being here, Mayra. We're still celebrating Women's Month, so here you are.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So tell us about what's going on currently with you in your life. Work, group, what's going on?
Well, my life has basically been the same thing for like the past 23 years of being a teacher. You know, I'm currently the director at the Palmview High School for the Palmview High School Mariachi, Los Lobos. I've been in La Jolla ISD for 23 years. I was an orchestra director before that.
Oh, yeah.
For
I
10
remember
years.
that. Yeah.
For 10 years. And then I moved over to mariachi. It was a very scary moment in my life because I wasn't even though I had been a mariachi for so many years, I wasn't comfortable teaching mariachi. And so one of my good friends who was also a band director at Palmview High School said, you know what, it's time for you to move up. It's time for you to move up. And I thought about it long and hard and I said, okay, let's do it. And so I moved up to the high school and then I started my whole mariachi journey. And it was and it's still the most amazing experience I have ever gone through as a teacher, which led to what now, is Mariachi Mariposas, because I got inspired to start Mariachi Mariposas also because of my students.
Oh, that's amazing. So then, how long have you been teaching mariachi at your school?
Mariachi, 13 years.
13 years.
13, yeah, at the high school.
And when you started there at La Jolla, did you start at La Jolla High School or did you start at Palmview High School?
I started at Palmview High School. It was the second year that Palmview High School had been in existence. And so I moved in there in 2009.
So when you were already teaching orchestra, was there already a mariachi?
Since the school started, it was built brand new. There was a mariachi already there for 1 year. And it was being directed by Mayra Garcia.
Oh, okay. So then you just came over. Okay,
yes,
I see what happened.
I came over the following.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. Oh, okay. So now that we're talking more about the school and the upbringing and whatnot, why don't we talk about your upbringing? Okay. I mean, I've always known you as a face, kind of what I was telling you earlier. Like when I was a kid, I would see you with Pan Am. I would see you play with the group, but I never knew anything about you until I started, being in the groups and, Mayra Garcia. So why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay.
What inspired you, or when did you start playing?
Well, I started playing when I want to say I was 11 or 12. Yeah, I was 11 or 12. I was in 7th grade. But I've always, since I was a child, my mom has always inspired me because she wasn't a singer, where she would be performing, but she would always sing at home. And that's how I got started with mariachi, because I would hear her songs and then I would learn them on my own. And then I would just, kind of imitate my mom. And so, when we moved to Houston at the age of 5, I was 5 years old. And then we moved back to the Valley when I was 10, I think. And then there was mariachi at La Jolla ISD, and it was one of the first mariachis, middle school mariachis that had been started. And so I joined in because I just, I was like, mariachi, like, yeah, that's what I am. And It was 1988.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, 1988. And they had a middle school mariachi. And I was performing as a 7th grader. And so my director was Emilio Cantu, which was, he's well known in the Valley as one of the pioneers.
Yeah.
And so he was my director, but he wasn't a violinist. He was a French horn player.
Wow.
And he was there to teach mariachi. And so he gave me a book and he said, this is the book. Teach yourself and I will guide you. And I said, oh man, but I was so excited, and he taught me how to hold it and everything. And then I just went off and I learned from a book. And then, when I went into high school, that's when I went into orchestra with Marvin Eagle.
So
He
back
was there.
when you were in middle school, you weren't in orchestra. Did they have an orchestra
No,
program?
they didn't. They didn't have an orchestra program. They only had mariachi.
So
But they had an orchestra program at the high school the following year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went straight in there with Marvin Eagle. And he was my director.
So then you learned mariachi first, and then you started orchestra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I started orchestra in high school as a freshman.
So going back, why'd you pick violin out of all the instruments in the mariachi?
I don't know. I was just drawn to it. I loved it, and it was who I was, and I never thought about it twice. I just, I went in there knowing what I wanted to be. It's almost like it was a calling.
There you go.
You knew it. You knew it. And I feel like I became good at it because I was so passionate about it. And I don't mean in any arrogance, speaking, arrogantly, but I felt like I was very passionate about it, and I felt like I just wanted to do that. And I would go 100% all the time. I would always learn my music. I would always be there, like, nunca sin vergüenza, like siempre right at the front and center. And that's what I wanted to do, and
Wow.
my directors were always very proud because I was so passionate about it, and
You always gave it 100%.
I always did
Nice.
100. And I knew what I wanted to do, I knew it.
So when you went to high school, there was mariachi in high school too, right?
Yeah.
So you were in both.
Yeah, I was in both. I was in orchestra and in mariachi actually, I was in mariachi. I think I started my second semester as a freshman. Yeah. And then, because I was in orchestra first, and then I was in mariachi. And then I continued as part of the UTRGV también.
Yeah. So when you graduated high school, you decided to study music.
Yes. Well, at first I didn't. At first I wanted music as my minor. And then I started, going off into thinking that, I was going to do something bigger. I was like, oh, well, I want to be a psychologist. I want to do this. But, eventually along the way, I'm like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
This is not where I belong.
Was it your passion?
No. And so I just went full time, into music, and I changed my major, and the rest is history.
Oh, so you went in as another major?
Yeah, I had my minor as music, and I started as a major in psychology.
What year was that?
1993.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
No offense.
That shows my age.
And how long?
Yeah.
Okay, did you try out the psych major or?
No. Well, actually, I don't really remember. I think I just switched. I don't think I auditioned. I don't think back then we had auditions.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
I know I had to audition for Aslan. I had
For
to
the mariachi.
audition for that.
Tell us about that.
Well, it
how
was
is it that you
very
came?
stressful, let me tell you, because, graduating from high school and then competing, for a spot with the kids from Edinburgh and the kids from Mackay, because Mackay also had, their mariachi group going. And so I was there competing for a spot with Alex and,
Trevino.
and Homer and Gutierrez, And so, we all went in together.
Wow.
We all went in together. Steven Garcia also. I don't know if y'all remember.
Yes, of course.
So we all went in together, and I remember it was very stressful because my upbringing on my instrument wasn't as advanced as theirs. And so I don't know how I did it, but I did it,
Mm-hmm.
and I practiced so much for that audition. I remember that my audition was playing, Veracruz Uno. That was my audition. And then I played Rondinella. I think I played Rondinella also.
Those were turf works back then.
Yeah. Yeah. They were popular.
Very
and
popular.
so I think that's what I auditioned with. And then I made it in with all the rest of the guys too.
Nice. And that was a very powerful generation.
Yeah,
back
it
then.
was. It was very powerful. And I think that's why most of us that we know we're all teachers now, we kind of have that connection because we all started off together.
So were you the only female violinist of this bunch?
No, there was others. There were other I think there was like 2 or 3 more, maybe more girls. Yeah. And then I became one of 2 later on. I became one of 2 later on, which was Karina Aldape, which is the orchestra director at La Jolla. And then it was myself also.
How long were you in the university?
Okay, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I was there for 19 years. Yes, I was there for 19 years. And the reason why is because when I started my college years and I was a psychology major, I lost 2 years. And so I went in, I changed my major at my second year. And so it took me.
You have to catch up.
Yeah, I had to start all over. And then I went into my master's degree 2 years later because there wasn't a master's. I think the master's degree came in 2007.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember being in school and I would see you around.
Yeah.
And you were a master's student.
Right. And I was in there. I started my master's, but because I was already working, I couldn't do full time. So I was taking 1 class a semester, 2 classes a semester, and it took me a while to graduate. And while I was there, I was in the university group as well.
Wow.
So I never really, and I really tried to leave, before that because I felt like I was in there way too long and I wasn't giving opportunities to other people. And so I remember always talking to Dr. Guerra and Pancho about it, right? Dr. Guerra always told me, no, it's okay. No, you're okay. Until finally, I wasn't able to make rehearsals as much because I had a full-time job and had to stay there with the kids. And so it just kind of like faded away. And so that's when I just faded away. Yeah.
Retired.
Let's
call it
that. Yes, from Aslan.
So after all these years, then, you're doing your job, you have your master's degree, and then you're inspired to make your own group, right?
Yes.
Tell us how that happened.
Okay. So once I left the university group, for good, because even when I finished my master's, I was still there for a while. And so, I was missing it so much. And I was also part of a co-ed group here, Los Gavilanes.
We were just talking about them before you came in. Yeah.
I was there for a long time too. I was doing UTRGV or Pan Am back then, right? I was doing them, Aslan, and I was doing Gavilanes as my side job. Mm-hmm. And I was working too. And so with Gavilanes, I spent all those years, but it was a co-ed group. And I remember one year, Dr. Guerra, convinced me to be in the all-female mariachi that they had. Xochitl. They had one all-female mariachi. I was there for 1 year, and I remember I was so scared I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to do it. I just want to be in Aslan. And she was like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. And so I did it for 1 year, and I loved that vibe so much that once I left that, it just stuck with me. And so I one day I just said, you know what? I'm going to form an all-female mariachi. Like, I think it would go well. But it wasn't my main motive. My main motive for starting Mariposas were my students, because I had such a talented group that particular year that I started Mariposas, which is 2012. I had such a talented group of kids that I felt like they needed something else to continue. And some of them were not joining. They weren't going to the university, to UTRGB. They were going to STC.
STC, yeah.
And so, they were like, Miss, we want to continue playing, but we don't know, who do you recommend we go to? And so I said, man, I cannot let these girls just fade in the wind,
Yeah.
So that was the reason why I started Mariposas, to bring an opportunity to my students. And up to this day, I still have 2 of them in my group.
Nice. From the original.
From the original.
Wow.
And from Lobos, which, So that's kind of what I do now. Like I take kids, that have graduated. My recent one that I just brought in right now is Melanie.
Yes.
Olivares, she's the.
Did she win the competition with Vargas?
Yes, she did. About 3 years ago. And she's from La Jolla. So she graduated from La Jolla High School, and now she's the youngest one. And so that's what I kind of do now,
Wow. So you basically built a haven for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually, pues, through the years, they start, doing their own thing in their lives, and they move out, they move out, and then I bring in more and I bring in more, and so, right now, because I think, thank God, I've had a very steady group of girls. Like there hasn't been a lot of positions opening. But as soon as there's one, I bring them in and I bring them in, and I'm just like, like every director, I'm watching every single kid, that comes, every single, female that comes from all over the valley, and I'm there watching them, and I'm watching them, and I'm watching them, and I'm always thinking in my head, be really great for Mariposas, and so that's what I did with Melanie,
Yeah.
I was like, man, I need her in. And so I did speak to her director, and I said, how does she play? She goes, she's great. And so that's how I spoke to her, and she was very excited to join. So most kids that I reach out to, most of them will stay. They will say yes. So
And you guys perform like pretty much every weekend, right?
Pretty much, yes. But because we have directors in the group, and, there's so many things going on for mariachi, there are times when I have to close weekends.
Yeah.
Like in March, we only played this weekend, and then that's it. Everything else, the whole 4 weekends are closed, or 3 weekends, because of the same thing. There's too many things going on.
But your group has been very active this whole time.
Yes. As soon as I'm able to open weekends up, I either get, calls, because my calls do come in, because, we're one of the few female mariachis in the valley. I think there's only 3 of us here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do get a lot of calls for that. But it was, unfortunately, some weekends we're not available and some are, and those that are, pues, yeah, we take them and we go. And then events that come in,
Yeah, like I've seen that you've done like Palm Fest, right? Past.
We've done
Houston Rodeo.
Yeah, we've done Houston. We've done a couple of events here in the valley. And oddly enough, there aren't very many that we get invited to from the valley. That's kind of weird. I think Edinburgh has been the one that has been the most, they have invited us a lot for their events. But everywhere else, I think, we've done like Onion Fest, and we've done like, I think there's like a few concerts that we've done here for like school districts and stuff. Pero oddly enough, it's weird how they know us everywhere else but the valley. But it's all good. It's all good. I mean, we try to do as much as we can to keep our group active too.
One of the big staples that your group has done, you've done with your group, and Joel and I were talking about it, was your TED Talk.
Yeah.
Tell us how that came to be.
I got a call one day, and okay, so I know it's going to sound weird, but I did not know what TED Talks were. And they called me and they said, we would like you to be a participant in a TED Talk. And I was like, okay. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, and like, I always try to do everything that comes to me, because I always feel like when something comes to you and you feel it good, like you got to do it, you got to do it, because every opportunity that you get, I always find it as being a blessing. Mm-hmm. And so when they said TED Talk, I said, oh, okay, yeah. I said, that's fine. I said, yeah, sure. let's do it. Let's work on this. And I hung up the phone, and then I remember I was at Raymond Horta's house. He's a comedian here in the valley. Yeah. I was at his house, and I remember speaking to him and some other people in the room, and I was like, oh, they just called me for a TED Talk. I go, what? Oh my God. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. And they're like, oh my God. They're like, are you crazy? You better look it up now. And so I'm there looking it up, and I said, like, what?
Yeah.
And so it blew my mind. And I felt kind of dumb at the moment because I was like, how do I not know about this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, this is crazy. Like, how, and so I can tell you right now, that TED Talk was one of the most challenging and nerve-wracking opportunities that I have ever had. It was challenging because even if I felt that I had control of that on stage, you don't. And everything I would write out, the whole story, it was always back to the drawing board because we had people there that were looking at our story and they were guiding us every step of the way. They were correcting things. They were adding things. They're like, no, you cannot. No, would be better if you would do this, and it would better do, and we would have to rehearse. We did it for weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but we had to rehearse, and then I'll never forget. They said, you have to stand in that red dot, and then was obviously, how it's all TED Talks have that red tapetito, the red.
Yeah.
That was the red dot, and so it was super exciting. Like, it was just like, I remember just finishing that off and I'm like, my God, like, how did I ever get to this point? Like, wow, like, I must have done something good along the way. And so it has been probably one of the best moments of my life. Yeah. Challenging, but it was fantastic.
You were very powerful in that speech.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
I really like how you also added the singing into the speech.
Yeah. And honestly, at the very beginning, when we were in that meeting with all of the other panelists, I did not know what I was going to talk about. I don't know where to start, I was so scared. And I said, I just don't know. And so they were so good to me, to a point where they guided me every step of the way. And I'll never forget them. They're my friends for life. And they just, everything, they laid it out. They're like, this is what you're going to do. And they would challenge me to think about things, so I learned how to be a speaker, and I just gained so much from that. It was amazing.
Yeah, I remember watching it with some friends when we first saw it when it first came out, and it was very impacting. What you had to say and the way you executed, your ideas, and it was even now when you were just telling us about it, like, it just really sparked that feeling. So you obviously did do something, and I think it's something very inspiring for all of us because no one has had a stage like that before. I think so thank you. Thanks for that.
Well, it came from the heart, because that's what I was guided to do. You got to speak from the heart and you got to speak your truth. And my truth was that it wasn't easy for me to grow up as a woman in mariachi. It wasn't easy. It's easy. I feel like it's easier for women now to date. But back then, I was a mariachi in a male world.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up, segueing into this adversity, because as you know, all of us have faced some sort of adversity in our lives. And in any field of work, music in particular, what's the biggest adversity you faced?
It's been that. It's been the trying to prove myself as a worthy musician in mariachi. I worked with male groups for a very long time and I was the only female. And I remember, I thank God for that opportunity because that's how I grew to be who I am. That's how I grew to be stronger, because if they wouldn't have put me down so many times, and told me that I was good for nothing, that I wasn't a good mariachi, that I wasn't a good singer, that I wasn't a good player, that's what made me be more, want to be more, and to prove that I could be more, And it was something that I grew up with that has never left me up to today, because when I go out with my girls, I feel that I need to prove something, even though that I know times have changed, I always feel like I need to prove something, like I gotta go out and do better. Like I gotta do good. And that's the same energy that I transmit to my girls, because sometimes we go out there and we're not perfect, we're not perfect. And so I feel that sometimes when we do make mistakes, or we're out there and something happens, we go off. I feel that sometimes the girls feel like they've done something wrong, and, that's part of me because I transmit that energy to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them like, it's okay, it's okay. Like yesterday we had a performance and we did a song that we hadn't done in a long time. And so I just pulled it out and I said, okay, we're going to play this. And they're like, all looking at each other, and so they did it. And so along the way, something happened and they messed up and we got out of there and they were like, Mayra, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mayra. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I just thought I had control and it's okay, but that is something that I have struggled with all my life. Always that self-doubt and that like always wanting to be the best that I can so that people don't see me as, oh, she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what she's doing.
So that's how, well, going back to this now, is this idea. So this is how you transmit it to your girls in your group. But what about your female students? What do you tell them?
Well, they see me every day and I'm a very strict director with them. I'm very loving. I do a lot of, como le dicen, tough love,
Mm-hmm. Tough love, yeah.
And so, I think my girls really look up to me a lot and the fact that when I do teach, I always teach with a lot of passion, but they also see that in me. I think that is something that they struggle with too, They're in shows and concerts and sometimes they walk out of their stage crying because they made a mistake, and I do feel sometimes very guilty for that, I mean, I had a kid, that she's a perfectionist. She walks out of stage. I didn't notice that mistake she made at all. She leaves the stage and starts crying and crying and crying and crying and crying and telling me that she's sorry. And I'm just feeling this inside, like, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. And I know they see this in me, but it's something that I have always had because of the upbringing that I had.
Yeah, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough because it's kind of like your own trauma.
Yeah.
In a way, it's traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But this is why, like I said, like I always thank God for this, because this is why I always strive to be the best that I can at everything that I do. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, that's the story.
Wow. That's a very big thing in my life. I've never experienced anything like that. So yeah, that's
yeah.
Wow.
That's the biggest challenge that I've had as a woman in mariachi. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about pandemic. So how did pandemic affect your life, your kids, your group?
Well, it was, I think at first I just did not feel it as much because honestly, we had been, I've been a person that has worked all her life, and so when that happened and we got to stay home, it was a very different challenge for me because we had to relearn how to do everything through a computer, and trying new ideas and doing programs and doing lessons and all sorts of stuff, which I thought was a good thing for me because I became more knowledgeable in what I did, but I also got to kind of just relax a little bit, and it was okay for a couple of months. And then afterwards, it just kind of started going nutty, so where you feel like, oh my God, like, when is this going to end? Is this the end for all of us? Is this the end of my career? What am I going to do? What can I do for the kids? and not to mention that Mariposas, all of the contracts that I had done, everything canceled. And so it just took a dip. And so for all that time, there was nothing. And, I was afraid of that. I was afraid that maybe I was going to lose my girls. And I would always try to, meet with them via Zoom and talk about things and, even sometimes play games and stuff like that because I felt like I wanted to connect with them. And then finally, we got an opportunity to do a big thing called Yo Voto y Grito. And it was when I think that it was still in the pandemic because I remember being very scared to go out. And they hired us from San Antonio to go play at all the voting sites. And so we played from I think it was Westlaco all the way to Edinburgh. And, we did, we performed out there, and I remember wearing my mask and being super scared and just told the girls, it's going to be okay, but we got to do this. We got to do this because we got to stay alive. And so we did. We all just did it. And that's when it started to feel better, but we took a big hit. I think everybody did, and we took a big hit, and it's been a struggle to get up. It's been a struggle. But yeah.
Even now after, all this time,
Yeah.
there's still some programs that have suffered, because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're not as strong. Some students, are a little behind.
Yep.
And people are playing catch up. I don't know if that's happening to you.
Actually, yes. Actually this year, I am still at the last batch of my pandemic babies. When I started in middle school, my freshmen now are 1 year babies. They were in school for 1 year as a middle school student playing an instrument. So they came in the varsity group as a pandemic baby. They're the last batch. And so, yes, it was a big struggle. And I always try to remember that because, even though they've done so well, I have to remember that they're not as advanced as they could be, but they've done so good, trying to catch up and be with the other kids, But yeah, I think it's been a challenge. Yeah. It's crazy.
You as a leader, a female leader, what advice do you have for listeners that want to be leaders?
That's a really good question. I get asked this a lot because they always wonder how I keep things going for a long time. How do you manage to do this? And I always say this: you always have to have respect for people. You always have to respect who they are, respect their musicianship, respect with the level that they're at, and always be there as a guide. Never be there as being a leader with having control and having like I'm a better than you vibe because I'm at this position, more like a power trip, and I think this is where most leaders fail because they get on this, vibe where they feel like they're the leaders and I'm better than you. And so I have mad respect for my girls. Everybody is at a different level. Everybody has their own, virtues, and I respect that a lot. And I try to do as much as I can for them, as well as for my students. I try to really cater to them so that they can feel like they're part of a healthy organization, and that's why I've been able to keep the group going strong, because they feel like it's a safe place for them. But that's mainly because I have learned to be that person. They can count on me. I'm not going to be upset with them because they did something wrong or because, I respect who they are, And so I feel like to be a leader, it takes a lot of courage. It does, because there's a lot of responsibility with it. but you have to be very compassionate, and you have to have that love and that passion for what you do so that it can drive you to become that person, that everybody can respect and everybody can look to. You have to be a role model.
Amen to that.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Would you say that you're still learning as a leader?
Absolutely. Yeah, every day. I mean, like I said, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not, and I make my mistakes. I sometimes, I don't know all the answers to everything. And every day, yeah, I learn from them. I learn from my girls, and I learn from my kids. Even from my kids, I learn, every day. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling, but I'm able to accept that, because as leaders, you have to take everything that comes to you and you have to grow with it. You have to grow with it. And I feel that it has made me a stronger person. And it's a big job. It is a big job. And, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that respect from people,
So, prior to this show, and we were talking about you, Joel said, I wonder why she decided to stay here. She could have gone anywhere. She could have done anything she wanted, but she stayed here. Tell us why.
I love the Valley. The Valley is my home. I will never move out of here. Never. I had the opportunity to apply for university jobs. No, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'm like, no, because the Valley is my home. This is where I am, and this is where I feel that I am best at what I do. This is where I feel I am best at what I do, because I was born to do something in life, and that is to guide, and to teach, and to be able to keep generations of mariachi music going, and I feel this is the best place to do it because we are a Mecca.
Yeah.
We are a Mecca, and this is a great place to work at, and it's a great place for culture, and I feel like I just belong here.
And I think you've done great. I mean, you have kids now, students, who went into this too, and now teach too. So so congrats to you. I think you've done an amazing job staying here with us. So thank you.
I'm never leaving. This is where I'm dying.
God forbid.
This is where I'll just fly out every once in a while. No, but yeah, I mean, I love the Valley. I couldn't be anywhere else. I couldn't. This is where I belong.
Where do you see Mariposa going in the next 10 years?
Well, I sure hope it keeps going. That's, we always pray for that, that it keeps going strong. And I always tell my girls, because they always ask me, like, Mayra, you're this old. I'm not going to say how old I am, but he's like, you're this old. When are you planning to actually not play anymore? And they don't mean it in a rude way.
Right.
They always wonder about that. And I'm like, well, you know what? When I decide not to do it, I'm still going to do it. Like, I'm still going to be there with you guys, even if I'm just directing, even if I'm a manager to you, even if I'm there booking your things, but I'm still there. Like, I want to keep it going because I think it's an opportunity for people, to continue to do what they love. Because that's what we're there for. We do it because we love it. We're not there for the money because everybody knows that we don't make any money. There's no money in mariachi. There's no money in that. So we love what we do, and that's why we do it. So that's where I see it. I hope to see it still grow 20, 30 years from now until maybe I die, then somebody takes over.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. It's about passion. We tell our own clients too, when they come in here, this is not about making money. This is a lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
This is a passion. Do this. It's for the love of music, for the love of the art, and for some of us, for legacy.
Right.
You know, that's our biggest thing, Joel and I, legacy. So
Of course. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
I totally get that from you too. So that's awesome.
Yeah. We find ways to make money with our passion. You know, we do. But we know that, you know, in mariachi, you're not going to get rich off of that, you know, unless you do it like full time, you know, like some of the groups that are in California, you know, but for us in Texas, sometimes that's hard, especially in the Valley. Like there's people that do it full time, but you can't get rich off. So they're there. Everybody is there because they love what they do. And that's just the simple fact. They love what they do.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Well, I think that wraps up for today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mayra, for being here. It was fun talking to you. I learned more about you today. Do we have any upcoming events? What
we have?
Oh, the Region Clinic, right? Is coming up.
Yes, we have a Region Clinic and concert at La Jolla La Jolla Performing Arts Center on the 24th and 25th. Yeah, lots of good things happening for mariachi. Lots of good things.
That's awesome. Well, once again, thank you.
Yes,
and
thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mayra.
Thanks.